I'm here with Poet to Poet with the president of the Revere History. No, not the Revere History. Yeah, the Revere History Museum. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. And his name is Robert Upton. Welcome.
Hey, Doug.
And Robert has generously agreed to appear on the show. And Poet to Poet has been around for over 20 years, but we moved from Somerville, and now we're here at our home at the Chocolaffee Cafe, where we'll hopefully have monthly broadcasts. So, as I said, you're a longtime resident of Revere, and you've been active in many things. And I mean, how did you? How did you become? Tell us your trajectory uh, in Revere in terms of your involvement in the community.
Well, I'd have to say, my involvement with the community, I've always been a very strong advocate of Revere, a Revere cheerleader. A lot of my life growing up here, my father and his five brothers, three sisters, nine in that Upton family, five in my own family. I grew up in veterans housing in Revere, the Revere Housing Authority. A lot of lifelong friends from that same environment. A couple of them I actually worked for, one in particular, Mr. Wayne Terminello, one of the owners of Fleetwood Recording on Revere Street, and Bill Dudley, as a matter of fact, had an interest in Revere Beach. Fleetwood was making and producing sales, marketing, promotional materials. They were also a recording company. They did drum corps records and sports albums. But as I mentioned, Bill Dudley had an idea that we should create one of our own products, and he had a keen interest in the history of Revere Beach, and we wanted to create the Revere Beach audio tour. So that was my responsibility, and that's how I came upon the subject matter. Of course, we went to Revere Beach, we grew up there, but little did I realize just how much of a rich history it had. And in learning about that history, I was introduced to Mr. Peter McCauley, who really taught me a lot about the rich history of Revere Beach. He actually lived right beside the Rumney Marsh burial ground. He had been a childhood friend of my dad. But Peter told me all about the history of Revere Beach. We captured and learned a lot about that, and we ended up making the Revere Beach audio tour, and it was a fascinating experience. And we did sell quite a few of them, but it was a local project. It then, had an opportunity to meet Kevin Carey, as I'm sure you know, Doug, and other people with that type of experience and background that could help us to make an audio product. We eventually made Revere Beach the Changing Tide with Kevin Carey, that videotape, and that went very well. And I decided that this thing called the internet was coming along, because this was the early 90s, that I had been learning a little bit about not only Revere Beach, but the online ability of making that information available. And I bought the domain name reverebeach.com and many other domain names, as a matter of fact. But, I think it was through that process that I immersed myself in the Revere Beach subject matter. It led me to the Revere History Museum, of which Peter McCauley was an active member. The Rumney Marsh burial ground, which, as I mentioned, you live next door. So all that Revere history, I got to learn quite a bit about. And, just my nature is kind of one of those things. I like to get involved with an organization at different periods of time. Like at this time, I happen to be the president of the Revere History Museum. The organization is actually the Revere Society for Cultural and Historic Preservation. But I've been the chairperson of the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground organization as well. So over these past 30 years, I've immersed myself in the rich history there. I don't live in Revere at this time. I live in Peabody, but I'm in Revere all the time. Almost every day I am in Revere, and I keep close ties to the community and what's happening here. We get great support by the city of Revere. Mayor Keefe, as Mayor Haas had been, and Mayor Reinstein had been, ardent supporters of the Revere History Museum. It's kept us alive. It's kept us going. We have lots of things going on down at the Revere History Museum at this time, and I like to stay engaged and involved, and that's kind of where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, yeah. Now, you have a location. One of your locations of the Revere History Museum is the Rumney Marsh, right?
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that?
Rumney Marsh, yep.
Right. It's the burial grounds. So what is the historical significance of this marsh?
Well, Rumney Marsh is actually Revere, Chelsea, Winthrop, parts of East Boston. Revere being is close proximity to the Atlantic Ocean, as they will restate again. Revere Beach, America's first public beach, actually a National Historic Landmark.
And also of the first naval battle of the Revolutionary
Well,
War.
right off of Revere Beach and off the Rumney Marsh area, you had Chelsea Creek. That was the site of the first naval battle, the Battle of Chelsea Creek,
And I heard the sailors went off to get a bite at Kelly's, right?
Kelly's didn't come about until
Yeah.
1950, 1951.
Yeah.
But Kelly's had been a famous place for a long time. The Carey and McCarthy family started that in 1951. But, Revere Beach has always been a great gathering place. It then became an amusement area. Some will call it an amusement park, but it was essentially a 3-mile coastline of open space for the working class people of Boston, which why the beach was taken by eminent domain. It had been in terrible disrepair, but the Metropolitan Park Commission took Revere Beach by eminent domain, cleared the sand of all the buildings that had been built in the sand and opened that space for the working class people of Boston.
Getting back to the marsh, anyone of significance buried there?
Well, anyone specific that buried there? I would tell you there's 440 souls buried in the Rumney Marsh burial ground.
Mhm.
And I will tell you there are slaves that are buried there in unmarked graves, and we're working on identifying them where we can. We're going to have a special marker made for those that are in those unmarked graves. There are veterans that are buried, Civil War veterans that are buried in that burial ground. It's a very, very important site in the city of Revere. It's not that well known. A lot of people who live in Revere today, the population are not familiar with it. But, I've been a member of the Rumney Marsh burial ground for over 20 years. Peter McCauley was as well. At this time, the chairperson is Brendan O'Brien. But we have a small core of people that have been dedicated a lot of their time and effort to maintain and preserve.
The director of there was a director there of management.
Well, the chairperson for the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground Renovation Committee today is Brendan O'Brien. I had been for a while. Nick Buell was before myself. It seems to me that many of us have been tied into the veteran community. Brendan O'Brien is not, but he's been an active member. He's very interested in the history and what's happening there today. And he and actually Janelle, his wife, is very involved with it. But Tom Sullivan, there are a number of people who have committed a lot of time and effort to the Rumney Marsh burial ground. Ivan Novoselsky is the ward counselor here at the Shirley Avenue area. He's been a veterans advocate. He's a military retiree as well. He's been very active there.
Now, that brings us to something that we want to talk about is that, organizations, nonprofits like yours need volunteers. Tell us about volunteer opportunities and how you would connect.
Well, I would say volunteers is the lifeblood of what we do, both at the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground as well as the Revere History Museum. We could not operate either one of those organizations without volunteers, people in the community that know and love the community who want to spend their time volunteering. When we have no paid staff, we're trying to raise money and get grant money, and the city's been good to us, helping us to get state and other types of grants to help us do what we do. But it's the volunteers is what we need to get people in the building, to let the community come into the building on a regular scheduled time when we can open. That doesn't happen today. We try to open as often as we can. Sometimes it's once a month, sometimes it's twice a month. But I think if we had a steady cadre of volunteers, we could set a schedule and get people in on a more regular basis. We'd love to get more students involved. We'd love to get seniors involved. We don't yet have authorization to have seniors involved with the senior tax credit, senior tax work-off program yet, but I think that's a goal we'd like to be able to achieve because that can be helpful to us. But we do need volunteers. If people wanted to reach out to me, they can call me directly. I have no trouble in giving my cell phone number out, which is 978-807-0167.
Repeat that.
978-807-0167. The museum telephone number is 781-286-2666. My email address is bobupton19@gmail.com. We ask people to reach out to us. We are open periodically. We try to publish our schedules. We have a Facebook page, and it is an active Facebook page, but we don't have a website. getting back to websites, I am the owner of reverebeach.com, and I do have links to the Historical Society and other organizations within the community. It's an active site. We have all the social media links as well there, and I certainly invite people to come to the website at reverebeach.com.
Which you created some 30 years ago.
I did create that website a long time ago, about 30 years ago.
Now, the museum has an extensive archive of artifacts and materials. Could you talk to us about some of the significant parts of your collection?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. We have 4 floors. We don't have an elevator, but we do have 4 floors of displays. We have 14 to 16 different display areas. Toby Perlstein is the director of museum operations. She's a highly educated, hardworking volunteer. She and a couple of other volunteers in the community, like Janet Long and Dottie Foley and others, have spent a lot of time designing and developing and creating these display areas. One in particular I can speak to is our sports room, Revere High School sports. We have some of the equipment from some of the great players on some of the great Revere High School teams that we have featured in the sports room. We have the Revere City Government room, where we have many of the political signs up of the people who have been people who have held elected office in the city. We have the entire room of Peter Macaulay's sealer of weights and measures. We have all the tools that he had in his own particular operation. But we have an early Revere room. I think that's on the 3rd floor. We have 3 Revere Beach rooms where we feature Revere Beach and parts of Wonderland, the Wonderland Amusement Park. When I mentioned Wonderland Amusement Park, people, when you hear the word Wonderland, you might think of the Wonderland MBTA station, or you might think of the Wonderland dog track, which was very prominent and popular for many years. But Wonderland was actually an all-inclusive amusement park that was off of Revere Beach. It was a separate amusement area, and it was where they had the latest and greatest in rides, amusements, and attractions. Revere Beach itself is a 3-mile coastline of rides, amusements, and attractions that many of us worked at or frequented. The Army and Navy bases in the Boston area. On weekends, the Revere Beach would be packed with soldiers and sailors that would frequent Revere Beach in uniform. And if you were a local guy and you had a girlfriend, you probably wanted to stay away from Revere Beach on the weekend, because the soldiers and sailors were there in uniform. And, it was quite an attraction for both the soldiers and sailors to see the local girls, but for the local girls to see the men in uniform there. But always a popular gathering place. But, Revere Beach has 3 public transportation stations right there. Wonderland, Revere Beach, Beachmont.
But I was going to say, what happened? Why did the amusement parks go away?
Well, there's many reasons why the amusement parks went away. People commonly say, the blizzard of '78 took everything away from Revere Beach. But in all honesty, the rich history of Revere Beach will tell you that the decline of Revere Beach happened after World War II. America became more prosperous. The automobile became much more popular. People had more ability to go to different places for all forms of entertainment. They would travel to Maine, or they would travel to New Hampshire, or go down to, the South Shore. People could stay home and watch home TVs. That was another competition for people's time and attention.
But that begs the question. Coney Island is still around and active. Why is that?
Not of the size of Revere Beach. Revere Beach was for the working class people of Boston. The convenient location. It just was a different type of a setup. Revere Beach was.
How does it differ from Coney Island?
Well, the different types of attractions that were there. The people could walk up and down the beach. They had the ocean right across the street. You could spend the day at the beach and then go over to this other side of the street and buy a pizza at Bianchi's or Anna's or Bill Ash's Pizza. The combination of having public transportation, easy access to Boston. You had, the food establishments were there. You didn't have to have a lot of money to go to Revere Beach. In fact, many of my friends, we didn't have a lot of money, but we could go to Revere Beach and enjoy ourselves and spend the day down there. You didn't have to have a lot of money. We could walk to the beach.
Great.
I should also tell you, when we went to Revere Beach, my group of friends, we sat at one part of the wall. That 3-mile wall went from one end of the beach to the other. If you were from the Ave, you sat at the end of Shirley Ave, you sat on the wall in that area. If you were from Revere Street, you went to the end of Revere Street, you right there at the end of the corner of Revere Beach and Revere Beach Boulevard. Maybe that's where you sat on the wall. Bianchi's Pizza was right there as well. So we all carved out little spaces of the beach where our crowd was.
You know, I was talking with a colleague of mine in the New England Poetry Club. He was a very prominent lawyer. And he says it's one of his first jobs was on Shirley Ave. They sent him as a young lawyer to Myers Kosher Kitchen.
Absolutely,
Do
absolutely.
you remember that?
Oh, the deli. I remember it. I don't remember it vividly.
But anyway, he did. He said he was fed very well.
Oh, the Jewish population at Shirley Ave was an amazing component and part of the rich history of Revere Beach. Schwartzy's Deli, all the bakery shops. Shirley Ave was famous in its own right, but the beach in Shirley Ave was very much highly connected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, why do you think the Jewish population sort of dispersed on Shirley Ave?
I think it's the same story. Progress. I think people they had more money, they had more options to live in different places, maybe have a little bit more space. I know at one time, the population at Shirley Ave was really very, very compressed. There were a lot of multifamily homes and all. So I think people had a chance to spread out a little bit more. So they maybe went out to the suburbs. And that's kind of like the story of Revere Beach, why it went away. And oftentimes I'll do my 1 hour slideshow presentation on Revere Beach to a school population, a student population, and people say, Mr. Upton, where did it go? How come we don't have that anymore? Well, then times change, things change. But, so many people have such fond recollections. For 30 years, I've been doing a 1 hour slideshow on the history of Revere Beach. Even today, I'm going to the Danvers Senior Center. And that audience has great memories. And, it's promoted that I'm doing the Revere Beach slideshow, and they may think I'm coming there to tell them about Revere Beach. In all honesty, I'm going to learn about Revere Beach and their memories so I can share that with the next audience. That's the popularity of the slideshow.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I didn't ask you, do you look for donations from people, ordinary folks?
Yep, ordinary folks. They can make donations when they come in. We have a donation, a place for them to leave their donations. They can send checks in to us. We're happy to accept those. We know that people can make contributions to us, maybe from their required minimum distributions, where they can make that donation to us. We are an official 501c3, and we encourage people to think about making that donation to us. $1,000. We just had a woman come to us just last week, and she knocked on the door. One of us happened to be there. We opened the door. She came in. She told me about her family and her, love of Revere Beach. They were from the Point of Pines. She had a check that she wanted to donate to us because their family was not any longer able to do their barbecues that they did once a year. So they decided to give the rest of their funds to us at the Revere History Museum. We were so excited, so surprised. Out of nowhere, someone came and gave us $1,000. And that's how we operate. That's how we've been able to keep our doors open. That, and with, of course, the strong support of the city of Revere and the state officials.
But for instance, money is great, but how about what kind of donated items are you looking for?
Well, I was shopping the other day. I went to the store to get something. My wife gave me a shopping list, and I met one of my former classmates. He was a star football player on Revere High School. And I said to Charlie, "Hey, Charlie, nice to see you." I says, "I remember you going in for the touchdown so many times." He said, "You number 32?" And he was. And he said, Bob, he says, "I see you in the journal all the time." I said, "I know, I'm one of the frequent flyers, but, I do represent the museum. And, I remember you so vividly playing football. You and the Delgazos, Michael Wunyo, Alan Drover, Nicky Catanazzo, and all those names. Those are my childhood heroes, watching them play football. Al Petrilli. Those guys were great football players. We have some helmets from some of those players. We would love to have some of their uniform shirts. Those are the types of things that they're sitting in people's homes. They don't know what to do with those items. Donate them to the Revere History Museum. We're happy to take them. Reach out to me, myself, or Toby, or any of our other members. We'd happily put them on display, depending on.
You very generously accepted my first Revere edition of Ibison Street. Remember, I gave you
absolutely.
the literary magazine.
I actually started to read different excerpts within that. Yes, very interesting and very generous of you.
No problem.
Your time here is great too. Thank you.
Anything else that we forgot that you'd like to add?
there's always something you're always going to think about afterwards. But I think it's great that you're giving me the opportunity to tell the story of the Revere History Museum, our need for donations and volunteers to help us out to continue our mission. Give us a chance to say thank you to those who have helped us. As I said, the city has been a very strong supporter of what we do. Mayor Keefe at this time has been very supportive of what we do. Ira Novoselsky and the city council, the state representatives have always been very supportive of what we do. Jeff Turco, Jessica Janino, Rosalie Vincent had been before that time. Honestly, it's been a community effort. I can't say enough about the strong support. I'm glad we have the museum, and people do want to support us. The more people we get in there, the more support we end up with.
Well, thank you for joining me on Poet to Poet, Writer to Writer here at the Chocolaffee Cafe just off Revere Beach, 7 Dehan Street. And just to let you know, we're going to have a poetry reading for the community here August 21st at 6 p.m. at the Chocolaffee Cafe, again, 7 Dehan Street. You can read your work, listen to other people, and sample great Colombian food. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doug. We appreciate this.